Hey everybody, today we're doing some more inequalities, and I'm going to go through these first three examples here, just these three, because these three are very similar to what we did at the end of class yesterday, except there's something like a tiny bit different about each of these three. So we're going to do them the same exact way. We're going to use the plus minus chart like we did in class. We're going to write our answers in interval notation. And I'm going to do a graph for them, but there's something that's a little bit strange about this one. So what I'm going to do first is, for this very first problem, what I need you to just recognize is that the signs do not always alternate. And that's when you do your pluses and minuses and write like the plus and minus over the top of the whole interval when you're trying to figure out what the solution set actually is. It won't always go plus minus plus minus. So that's what you need to get like kind of aware of. This very first problem, what we're going to do is, don't FOIL this out. It's already factored. That tells you what three numbers go on the number line. So when I do my number line, I'm going to put those three numbers, always put them in order, you guys. They always should be in order. So -3 goes first, then -1, and then 4. And these are my three numbers, and what I'm going to do is line up my factors over here on the left. So the first factor is x minus 4, the second one is x plus 3, and the last one is x plus 1. So starting with the x minus 4, I'm going to pick a number that's in this category, like -1,000,000. When I plug in -1,000,000 to x minus 4, I get a negative number, right? So I'm going to put negative there. What about if I pick a number in this category, like -2 is in there? If I do -2 minus 4, it's still negative. And what if I pick a number in this category, like 0? 0 minus 4 is still negative. But then look, once we hit the 4, and that's the number that came from this factor, pick a number over here, like 5. When you do 5 minus 4, that's when it changes to plus. So this number sign, the plus minus chart should start getting really quick. Look, this x plus 3, once you hit the 3, it's going to change because the 3 came from this factor. So if I pick a number in this category like -4, I get a negative number for that factor. What if I do -2? It changes to plus. And what if I do 0? It's plus. What if I do 5? It's plus. I'm just picking numbers in that category. The same thing is going to happen here for the x plus 1 factor. If I pick a number in this category on the number line, I get a negative sign. If I pick -2, I get a negative sign. If I pick 0, it changes to plus. And the reason why it changed to plus at the 1 is because that's where the factor came from. And then if I pick 5, obviously I have plus again, okay? So let's do a negative times a negative times a negative. That's going to give me a negative, right? So this section of the number line is negative. And then let's do a negative times a positive times a negative. That's going to be a positive. And then positive times negative, this is negative. And then positive times positive is positive. So here's my overall solution, and then let's talk about what we're looking for in this problem. This problem is asking, when I multiply all these things together, when is it less than 0? That means negative. So my answer solution is this category and this category. Okay, so if I were like shading and graphing, and by the way, these are parentheses as well, I would shade this section of the number line. And that's all because in the original problem it's asking me where is this, what sections of the number line is this negative. So here is the other one. This area is also negative. Okay, so last thing I need to do is just write that answer in interval notation. So the first blue section, this one, when I do that, it's going to the left forever, so negative parentheses up until -3 with a parenthesis again. And then we have this weird symbol in math that's called the union. It just means that there's more than one section. So my second section is -1, 4. So you use that little U symbol, it just means union. That means there's multiple sections. Instead of like putting a comma between the parentheses or writing the word and or something like that, there's a symbol for that, and it's called union. Okay, so I'm actually going to write that. That's what that means, okay? So those are my two sections, and again, why am I using parentheses for everything? Well, that's because this is just a less than sign and not a less than or equal to sign. So side note, if this was a greater than sign, if the only thing was different about this problem was if this was greater than, my solution would be this section and this section. So that's the only difference. So you go back up to the original problem to figure out which section of the number line is your answer. Okay, how about this one? Let's factor it because it's not already factored. So I think that there's a GCF in this, so I can take out an x squared, and I'm left with x squared minus 14x plus 48. And again, I'm going to keep my GCF. Let's see, I have x minus 6 and x minus 8. So I have three numbers that I'm putting on the number line here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and draw the number line so that I can get this thing started to be set up. I'm putting my numbers on the number line in order. 0 goes first, then 6, then 8. And I'm going to line up my factors. One of them is x squared, one of them is x minus 6, and one of them is x minus 8. Okay, so again, let's think about this x squared for a second. No matter what kind of a number you pick on the number line, isn't x squared always positive? That's what makes this one a little bit different, is that for x squared, it's positive everywhere. Okay? And then the x minus 6 and the x minus 8, those are the same as the one that we just did. So it's going to be negative until I hit the 6, and then it changes to positive. Same thing for the x minus 8. It's going to be negative until I hit the 8, and that's when it switches to positive. Okay, and again, you can do the long way, and you can actually pick a number in that category and plug it into the factor and figure out if it's a negative number or a positive number. But when I multiply these together, a positive times a negative, that's positive. So this section is positive. When I do a negative times a positive, that's positive again. This is weird. So this is what I'm talking about when I say they don't always alternate plus minus plus minus. So just be aware of this. This is an extreme case, and you need to be aware of that when you're doing these. So negative times positive, that is a negative. And then positive, that's positive. Okay, let's go up to our original problem. This is asking us, when is it greater than 0? So what are the positive sections of the number line? This section, and this section. So my first section is 0 with a parentheses, and I shade to the left. My second section is from 0 to 6, so this section also counts. And my third section, I have 3 for this one, goes from 8 to positive infinity. Okay, so when I write my union and when I write my final answer, I'm actually having 3 different sections here. So all of the negative parts, or all of the positive parts, are from negative infinity up until 0, and 0 until 6, and 8 to infinity. And again, parentheses for everything because it's greater than, it's not greater than or equal to. And so I get the question a lot, can I just write this as negative infinity up until 6? And my answer to that is, if it was greater than or equal to, that would mean yes, because that would mean that 0 would be included in that situation. But the really hard part about this is that, yeah, you actually do have to separate it out, because this means that 0 does not include the answer. So let's think about our original problem. When you do 0 minus 0 plus 0, is that greater than 0? So 0 plus 0 plus 0 is not greater than 0, it's equal to 0. So that makes it not true, which is why these parentheses on the 0 are really important. You cannot include 0, therefore I cannot do negative infinity to 6. And that's because 0 is in that category. But 0 makes this false. So you actually have to do negative infinity to 0, jump over 0, go to 6, jump over all those numbers between 6 and 8, and go to 8 to infinity. So this is our final answer, and that is only because it's strictly greater than. If it was greater than or equal to, you could do negative infinity to 6, and that would be a bracket. Okay, so hopefully that wasn't too confusing, but you do have to separate those out because 0 is not included in this interval. It does not make that inequality true. All right, last one. So I think that for this one we can factor as well. This is x minus 1 and x minus 1 and 3 minus x. Okay, that means that I have 1 and I have 1 again. and I have 3. So I'm going to draw my number line, and what I'm going to do for this is put 1 on there and 3 on there. No, I'm not putting a second 1 because it's the same number. So you just need it on there once. Line up my factors, x minus 1, I have another x minus 1, and I have a 3 minus x. So for x minus 1, pick a number less than 1, it's negative, and once you hit the 1, it changes. Same thing here. And now let's think about the 3 minus x. Here you have to be careful. I'm actually going to pick a number here. Let's pick a number in this category like 0. When I plug in 0 right here, I get 3 minus 0, which is 3, which is positive. Okay. That's weird that it's starting with positive. Let's pick a number in this category like 2. When I do 3 minus 2, I get 1, which is still positive. And then the last one, let's pick a number in this category, like any number bigger than 3, like 12. Doesn't matter. When I do 3 minus 12, hey, that gives me a negative sign. Do you think you understand why these signs are backwards? Why does it start with plus and then change to minus? So if you're kind of getting the hang of this, and if you're onto it, it's because the sign on the x is negative. Does that make sense? The negative sign makes these kind of backwards. And you have to be careful. It doesn't always go plus, minus, whatever. So you have to be really careful when you're doing your plus minus chart. Let's multiply all these suckers together. A positive times 2 negatives makes a positive. All positives again make a positive. And then a positive times a negative makes this negative. And I'm being asked in this question, when is it greater than 0, which means positive. So I have 2 sections. Those 2 sections again, and again it's not greater than or equal to, it's strictly greater than. So if I plug 1 into this equation up here, I would get it equal to 0. So I cannot include 1, which means I need to have a parenthesis here and a parenthesis here, because 1 is not included in this interval. And I'm shading here, and I'm shading here. So I have 2 sections. My answer for this one is going to be negative infinity until 1 and 1 to 3. And there's my answer for that. So these are just kind of 3 extreme cases, you guys. Hopefully that made sense and I went through them slow enough, but if you have questions about it, we'll talk about it tomorrow. And then we're going to finish the notes tomorrow as well, okay? Thanks for watching. Have a good night.